The 2025 NBA season tip-off is right around the corner, which for ESPN means it's that time of the year where they release their annual rankings list of the top 100 players in the NBA going into the new season. Every year, this list comes under pretty heavy scrutiny with a lot of debate over the placement of pretty much everybody's favorite players, but ultimately, the list represents a general basis for how the average fan views players against their peers. While you could nitpick the position of pretty much every player on this list, today I will be going through and picking out the 4 most overrated players on it, meaning that these are the players that are all obviously talented and productive in their own rights, but their ranking on the list and the players that they are ranked ahead of simply do not match up to the reality of what they provide on the basketball court. Before we start though, it turns out a good amount of you watching right now aren't even subscribed to the channel, so if you enjoy the content, consider hitting the subscribe button, as not only does it help out a ton, but I'd also very much appreciate it. Now with that being said, let's begin. The first player we'll be discussing today that got very overrated on ESPN's ranking list is Dereck Lively of the Dallas Mavericks, who was ranked 56th overall. Dereck Lively had an outstanding rookie season and quickly became a key cog on the team that represented the Western Conference in the NBA Finals throughout that run. His versatile defense, quick feet for a big man, ability to run the floor, and competence in the pick and roll were all utilized a ton as he developed chemistry with Luka Doncic and Kyrie Irving, and despite all of that being true, ranking him this high after the season he had is still way too ambitious for the time being. For one, he wasn't even the team's starting center, as he would come in behind Daniel Gafford in the pecking order at the time, and while he may snag the starting spot this season, he's still very much in a timeshare with Gafford for those minutes at the center spot. Second, production does matter when we're talking about rankings like this, and Lively averaged just 9 points and 7 rebounds per game last year, blocking a nice 1.4 shots per game as well, which is pretty solid for the role that he was in, but ultimately not borderline top 50 level of good quite yet. And for reference as to why a ranking like this is incredibly premature for the young big man, let's look at some of the more established players at his position that he was ranked ahead of. Jarrett Allen, Miles Turner, Sixth Man of the Year winner Naz Reid, Brook Lopez, Al Horford, and those are just the centers that he was somehow ranked ahead of. All of the players I just named have been established with resumes of being top-tier defensive impact guys and versatile offensive production, and then you factor in the players of all the other positions that Lively got the nod over, and you see countless other borderline all-stars like Zach LaVine, Darius Garland, Cade Cunningham, and so many more. So even though Dereck Lively is absolutely a promising young big man, he has now become overrated. The next player we'll be discussing today that has become vastly overrated according to ESPN is Jamal Murray of the Denver Nuggets, who was ranked 31st on their list. Murray is the kind of player who has pretty much always gotten the benefit of the doubt as a guy who can just turn it on when it matters, and is an NBA champion from 2 years ago, so a lot of his career has been him proving that, but we're also getting to the point where he has, as an individual, started to get pretty overrated when compared to his peers at the position. Murray is now 8 years into his career and still has not ever been named an All-Star, nor has he ever been named to any of the NBA's All-NBA teams. On top of that, in their second round series against Minnesota this year in the playoffs, his Nuggets were eliminated, and he only managed to score over 20 points in 2 of the 7 games in that series, so the typical assumption of him coming through in big moments didn't even apply this year. He then went on to play for Team Canada in the Olympics, where he stunk up the joint, averaging just 6 points, shooting 29% from the field for a Canada squad that desperately needed his scoring punch if they wanted to medal in the event. So Murray isn't even coming into the year with positive momentum. Being ranked ahead of all-stars and two-way talents like Lauri Markkanen, Julius Randle, LaMelo Ball, Trae Young, Scotty Barnes, and Rudy Gobert is giving him way too much credit when he has 0 individual accolades to his name besides getting to play alongside the best player in the NBA and winning a ring with him. The next player we'll be discussing today that is now vastly overrated is Damian Lillard, who was ranked 23rd on ESPN's list. There was a time when Lillard was a lock to be ranked in the top 10 of lists like these. Those days, however, are long gone, and the sooner we acknowledge that, the better. Lillard is coming off of a season that was nothing short of a disaster after spending the entirety of last summer forcing his way out of Portland to try to win a championship. Getting sent to Milwaukee presented him with that opportunity exactly, getting to play alongside multiple MVP winner and NBA champion Giannis Antetokounmpo and crew, but Lillard himself just did not look anything close to the Lillard of old. For one, he's never necessarily been a good defender, but Lillard's perimeter defensive woes last year were even worse and genuinely detrimental to the Bucks throughout the season. Additionally, Lillard had his worst scoring season in 10 years, putting up just 24 points per game, shooting the ball 42% from the field and 35% from three, which are both slightly below average marks. I think Lillard's reputation is largely responsible for this ranking still being in the top 25, because objectively his production and impact did not match up to quite a few of the names that were ranked behind him. Kyrie Irving, for example, just did with the Mavericks what Lillard was supposed to do with the Bucks, helping the Mavs make the finals, yet Kyrie is ranked behind him. Players like De'Aaron Fox, Paolo Banchero, Domantas Sabonis, Lauri Markkanen, and Trae Young also outperform him individually, and even Pascal Siakam helped turn around the Pacers and is also ranked behind him, so I'm not quite sure this one's very accurate. And finally, the last player on this list of the most overrated players on ESPN's ranking list is Jayson Tatum, who came in ranked 5th overall. After winning the NBA Finals, I completely understand that the leaders of the group deserve a boost because they accomplished the ultimate goal in the sport and definitely deserve credit for getting over the hump and bringing it back to Boston, but there has to be some nuance to these discussions. Ring culture is really starting to go overboard a bit with things like this because there never seems to be any room for context besides the ring itself, and you get called a hater for disagreeing with a player being overrated as a result of it, as we're seeing here. Jayson Tatum is an elite basketball player. Jayson Tatum is not a top 5 player in the NBA. The Celtics' entire starting 5 made the top 50 of this list, which speaks volumes to just how good this group was as a collective. Their ring was not the result of their stars carrying them to the promised land. It was the result of everybody in that lineup being incredibly good at what they do and doing their jobs at an elite level. I've said it before in videos, but Jayson Tatum has the easiest job of any superstar in the NBA because he can comfortably afford to have several bad shooting nights in a row, knowing that his team is still good enough to win those games in spite of him. In the NBA Finals, Tatum had back-to-back games scoring below 20 points, shooting the ball 31% from the field in those 2 games, and yet the Celtics still won both of those games comfortably on the biggest stage. If any other superstar player had back-to-back outings like that, their teams would get smoked both games, and the series would be over for them before it even began. Ranking Tatum ahead of players like Joel Embiid, LeBron James, Steph Curry, and Kevin Durant is egregious, because it just becomes clear that you don't hold Tatum to the same standard that you hold those other players to, as all of them outproduce Tatum individually, and none of their teams could possibly survive the amount of off nights that the Celtics can survive with Tatum. Swap any of those players onto the Celtics in Tatum's position, and the Celtics are still NBA champions, so let's not play dumb here. And with that being said, that's all I have for you today. Make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and comment down below who you think the most overrated player on ESPN's list was. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you all next time.